Going to have a conference tomorrow at noon about what happened here with the Republicans, and again, hopefully a constructive one, not the kind of stupidity we hear from most of the talking heads trying to blame each other. Yeah, you lost it. Now you lost it. Now you lost it. Now you're the one who does. The candidates think the political consultants lost it. The political consultants think the candidates lost it. Everybody wants to blame it on Trump. Let's see if we can blame it on the candidate. Stop it. Grow up. This is politics. You win, you lose. I said beforehand, Republican red wave, and then again, it might not be. We may all be mistaken, and it might just be modest. And it turns out to be something that if we hadn't raised expectations this high and hadn't been maybe as immature about, is a pretty darn good win. So the red wave, as I pointed out the other night, stopped basically here. I don't know if you can see it on the map, but right there. Stopped at Pennsylvania and Maryland. And then you can see, right up there is all blue. Blue northeast. Middle of the country, well, you have those blank spots where there were no races, but those are basically all Republican, with the exception, solidly Republican, with only exception there is Colorado, which you see blue, and New Mexico back and forth. And otherwise, that's pretty much all red. Little Illinois sits out there, driven by, it's almost as if Al Capone is still around in Chicago, where people get killed on the weekend by unbelievable numbers, and no Democrat has cared for 50 years or done a damn thing about it. But somehow they vote Democratic, which is a phenomenon that I can only attribute to being brainwashed. So let's get into where we are on the Senate, and then the House, and then you keep texting in your questions, and let's see if we can give a little common sense to the hand-wringing that's going on, and the fact that the media refuses to call the House for the Republicans, which is at this point now is on purpose, to give Biden the semblance of victory, because what you remember of now lasts for a long time. They're very media savvy and they're very crooked. So the first couple of days out of an election, the way it's spun, may turn out to be totally different next week, but you're going to remember this. And they are doing the best they can, like they did with, remember January 6th? January 6th, 4 people were killed by the protesters. Protesters killed nobody. Number 2, they can't even find a protester with a gun, much less killing somebody. Number 3, nobody burned the Capitol down, whereas during the summer of 2020, they burned down so many buildings I can't even count them. The arm of the Democratic Party known as Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Why do I say that? They have a common source of funding, George Soros. He funds all of them, plus the DAs who let them out of jail. So now in the Senate, we are at a comfortable 49-48. 49 Republicans when you count the people just elected or re-elected, the people there. 48 Democrats when you count the people elected or just elected. And at 49-48, what do we have? We have 3 states that have not been decided. Now, what states are they? They are Georgia. Now, we know that Georgia, we're not going to be able to report anything meaningful until a few weeks from now. I mean, we can report a lot of things meaningful, but we're not going to have Georgia decided until December 6th. So can the Senate be decided before that? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes if either party wins both Nevada and Arizona. If they split Arizona and Nevada, which is what it probably looks like now, then you go in 50-49. So let's look at, I really took a closer look for you at Nevada, so I could I give you a sense of how it's going to go. Arizona, I would say that Kari Lake is going to take it. She's every group of new votes that's counted, she gets closer and closer and closer. We'll look at her in a moment. We're talking about the Senate right now. I don't think Masters can make it. It's still a 4-point spread. They're at about 75% of the vote counted. I think I have to put Arizona where I put it last night, which is it's going to go Democrat.
Thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. We are recapping election night coverage. We still have outstanding votes. Correct, Mayor, in Arizona, Nevada. Those are two we're watching. Are we still waiting for a vote in some other key states? Or those
No,
are two?
I would say there are only two left. And of course, Georgia on December 6th. So if we look at the map right now, the official map, it basically is 49 Republicans, 48 Democrats, with Nevada and Arizona waiting. No chance that we're going to have them, it sounds like, until the weekend, if we're lucky. But Republicans are ahead in Nevada by about 2%. The Democrats are ahead in Arizona. The Democratic candidate for the Senate is ahead in Arizona by about 4. In each case, the opposite party is inching up. In Arizona, probably enough so that Kari Lake overcomes Hobbs and becomes the governor of Arizona. Probably not enough for Masters to overcome Kelly. But I haven't looked at that as carefully, so I'm going to give that to the Democrats because I think that's the safest and the most likely situation, which would then make it 49-49, which also would mean that Republicans could not win the Senate without winning the remaining two states, Nevada and Arizona. So let's take a look at Nevada. Right now, Laxalt, with about 88 or so percent of the vote cast, is ahead by 14,000 or a little under 2%. There are approximately 80,000 votes estimated to be counted in Clark County, which is the Democrat stronghold. Only one of two counties that vote Democrat in Nevada, but enough, to often carry the state for Democrats. However, Senator Costa Massos, was a weak candidate in Clark County so far. With 85% of the vote cast in Clark County, she is only ahead of Maxwell by 5%, which is a very weak showing. Although Clark County is not Philadelphia, New York City. It's not like 70, 80, 90%. It's when it goes big, it goes 20%, 25%. So she's down to 5%, which I think is half of what Biden had. And there's 80,000 votes left. So Laxalt says in the press conference today, she would have to get something like 63% of the remaining votes, where she's only gotten 53, 54%, 52% of the votes up until now. She'd have to outperform what she's been doing in Clark County by a substantial margin. So let's assume she doubles what she's been doing in Clark County. That would give her a net 8,000 votes, which would reduce his margin to about 6,000. The remaining Democrat county, she didn't win. there are votes left there, but she's even so far on all the votes counted. So it's unlikely she's going to pick up more than 1,000 or 2 votes there. It all of a sudden isn't going to change in the last group of votes. On the other hand, every other county in Nevada has yet to count all of its votes, although they're at the 90% mark. So there aren't a lot of votes to pull out, but they're all Laxalt votes. So, real simple. The Democrat picks up 8,000 in Clark County, another 1,000 in the other Democratic county, which is 9,000. He picks up 2,000 elsewhere, brings it down to 7,000, and he wins by 7,000. That sounds plausible from what I see here. At least just as plausible as the Democrats winning Arizona. So let's go Republican with that. And then let's say, see you in December. Because what that does, it throws it all to Georgia. And in Georgia, which is basically it's a two-man race, it's Warner and Warnock, Republicans will win if they win Nevada. Because if they know what they're doing in Georgia and they know how to run the race correctly, it becomes a race not between between Walker and Warnock. It becomes a race for the leadership of the Senate, or a race to check and balance Biden. And there's more than a majority in Georgia that would vote for that if you posture the race correctly. I do not believe the Democrats can overcome that. Abortion, not abortion, anything else. But it's got to be a singularly focused on get it off Walker, get it off Warnock, and get it on who is going to be the leader of the Senate. The Democrats, who will rubber stamp Biden, or the Republicans who will check and balance them.
Mayor, can you share with me you said this before about what it takes to narrow a race down to 3 issues, 2 issues, or 1 issue? How does that saying go?
Well, I mean, it's an axiom that comes from the very famous, now deceased political consultant David Garth, repeated very often by my predecessor at Koch, which is that a really good politician gets a race down to 3 issues you can understand. A great one gets it down to 2, and the truly brilliant ones get it down to 1 issue, and the answer to that issue is them, voting for them. So what I'm saying is, if I'm running a Republican race in Georgia, it's a 1-issue race. Who's going to control the Senate? Will it be a Biden rubber stamp to take us to communism? Or will it be a massive check on the ruination he's done to our government? I believe you focus it on Biden and you focus it on leadership. You get it off the 2 candidates, you got more than 50% of Georgia behind you. Georgia is, at the core, still a conservative state. That's why Warnock has to change all his positions to be a competitive. He can't tell you that he was in favor of defunding the police. He can't tell you that he's a owned and bought a candidate of the teachers union and the education establishment, and is going to let them do all kinds of things to your children in school without your permission. He can't remind you that he voted for inflation 3 times. All of this he tries to hide, because in Georgia you've got to be at least, a moderate Democrat, if not a conservative Democrat, to have a chance to win. Well, it's not going to matter if you're running against Biden. If Herschel makes a race against Biden, he wins. And that's what I mean by being a brilliant candidate and a great political consultant. And there are only a few brilliant candidates and only a few brilliant political consultants. Most are ordinary human beings. And they should stop blaming it on each other, because they are ordinary human beings. So that's the Senate. So let's go now to the House. Well, it'll take us a minute to get to the House. So before we do that, let's let's get you up to date on where the House is. So I think the House is already decided. I think the Republicans have won. When we put up the map, it's going to show you something like 208, 209 votes. It's 218 votes to have a majority. Republicans are, well, actually, it's more than that. It's now 210 so Republicans are 8 seats away from winning it, and the Democrats would have to gain. Oh my goodness! I mean, the Democrats would have to gain 10, 20, 25. Democrats would have to gain about 25 seats. Republicans need to gain 8 seats. So if the Republicans take 8 out of the remaining 32, Republicans have control of the Senate, but only by 1 vote. Of course, they're going to want it by more than 1 vote. So you have 32 left. And if you divided them in half, the Republicans would have 225 votes, which is 5 more than the Democrats have right now. If you gave it to the Democrats like, even 10, 20, the Republicans would have the Democrat number of 220. Republicans would have 220. And the Democrats would have 213, something like that, 213, 212. And the Republicans would control the House, which is why I'm telling you the Republicans have won it already. Here are a couple of races I just took a look at, haven't been called. The California 45th, Michelle Steele and Jay Chen. Well, Michelle's winning by 10% with 56% of the vote cast. Unlikely that's going to turn around.
Sorry, Mayor, what percent cast?
So with 56% of the vote cast, the Republican candidate for Congress is leading by 10 points. In California, 45.
Why would only 56% of votes for a race be cast? What are we now? About 48 hours past?
Yeah, because the government of California can't walk and chew gum at the same time because they're Democrats. Remember, Democrats are counting these votes, which gives you a little bit of pause. Or let's go to California 40 that has not been called between Young Kim and Asif Mahmood. There, 58% have been counted, and Kim is leading by roughly 20%. He's not going to lose. So you could take that 210 and we can make it 212 right now. Mike Garcia in California, 27. Now, only 44% has been cast, but he's leading by 15 points. And David Valadao is leading by 10 points in 22. You add those 4, you're only 4 votes away. You're only 4 votes away from getting you there. So this is the media trying to delay the calling of the House as long as possible. Because if you call the House, then despite the Republican exaggerations and expectations, it's a heck of a victory. The minute you take the House of Representatives away from a political party of the president, you just block the president. You've also unleashed a sleeping giant, haven't you? You know the anger at him in the House is tremendous. The anger at the Democratic Party in the House is tremendous. The amount of corruption they believe that they have been forced to endure and watch and see, the ridiculous constitution of that January 6th committee where every Republican that was named by McCarthy was rejected. I mean, I expect that committee will be dissolved, and I do hope that McCarthy sends the Democratic National Committee a bill for the cost of the January 6th committee, because it's been a political show throughout. Whatever you think of what happened on January 6th, how can you possibly hold your head up high and not have asked questions about the killing of Ashley Babbitt on January 6th? Not one question by any of those lying liars. Those are all, every face that you see is a Russian collusion liar. Every face that you see on January 6th is a Hunter Biden hard drive liar.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Comment below your name and where you're tuning in from. We're going to read some of them off here live on the show. The mayor, we don't get to all of them during the show, but he loves to go back and read through the comments. We get thousands and thousands of live comments each and every show now. So let us know where you're calling from. We have Texas here. Shawnette says hi from Texas. Terry's in Maryland. Greg is in Pennsylvania. Hello from Alabama. New York City. East Tennessee. Mayor, I'm reading these in real time. I can't keep up. We get sometimes 4 or 5 a second.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that we're all over that beautiful country.
Gloria in Florida. Illinois, Missouri, Florida, New York, Michigan, Three Rivers, Michigan, Pensacola, Florida, Corpus Christi, Texas, Minnesota, Germany, California, Missouri, Carlsbad, California, Alabama, Illinois, Port Richey, Florida, Virginia, Texas, Doris, California, New Hampshire. We're right here in New Hampshire as well, Eric. Greg in Arizona, Monterey, California, Arizona, Southern California. So we'll keep reading these. Again, you guys are telling us in real time where you're coming in from. I can't keep up. I'm trying to keep up and I'm still missing them. Texas, Indiana, Oklahoma, Florida. Okay, we got to stop, but we could keep going like that, Mayor. We have thousands of people tuning in. Keep the comments rolling in. Ask us some questions. What are you curious to hear from the mayor about here as we're just 48 hours from polls closing? Mayor, we're getting a lot of good questions tonight, including, and we've talked about this before, what is the strategy in a runoff? You have a runoff in specific to Georgia with Raphael Warnock, a Democrat party that really feels energized in Georgia the last few cycles, despite not winning much, besides those 2 Senate seats, which is pretty big deal. What's the strategy here, and how much can outside surrogates come in and help? And maybe talk about that for both parties.
First of all, I don't see an energized Democrat Party in Georgia. Stacey Abrams just got her head kicked in, and thought she was the governor for the last 4 years, and she got beaten soundly by Kemp. That had to be a great disappointment for the local Democrat Party. I mean, my goodness, they can't steal at the state level. They do a pretty good job in Atlanta and Fulton County, but I mean, that's a crooked machine. And they just got beat. I think that the fate of Georgia is in the hands of Nevada. See if I explained this before, but I'll go through it one more time. If the Democrats win Nevada, you are right, it'll be a much more energized Democrat Party, a much less energized Republican Party, and not much to win for the Republicans by just winning Georgia, because control of the Senate is over if the Democrats win Arizona and Nevada, as I told you before. Now, I do not think the Republicans can win Arizona and Nevada. I think the Democrats will win Arizona, but right now, as we sit here right now, Republicans have a better chance of winning Nevada than the Democrats do. If that happens, it's a totally different Republican Party. It's a totally different country. Then the race in Georgia is about leadership of the Senate. The people in Georgia are literally voting for whether you put in a Biden rubber stamp in the Senate, which is what the leadership has been and will be, or you check and balance Biden. Now, what do you think the Republicans in Georgia will do? Even if you run a moderately good campaign, but you get that issue out top of the line. If I were Herschel, and I'll talk to him, I wouldn't talk about anything else. I would say, after I get this point out, I'll talk about anything else. But let's make it clear. This is like a parliamentary election. You're not voting for me or Raphael. You're voting for Biden being rubber stamped or Biden being checked and balanced. Which do you want? Do you want a check and balance on Biden? Or are you happy with the inflation, the fact that Atlanta is overwhelmed with crime, and the fact that they're overwhelmed with illegal immigrants that are being allowed in the country by him at a rate that's unheard of, 4 million since he's been president? You run against Biden, and it's a legitimate thing to do because it will determine the leadership of the Senate. It also becomes a place for national surrogates because it is a national election. One state Assuming Nevada votes Republican, one state will decide the leadership of the Senate.
Thanks for joining us. We are on the cusp of breaking an all-time record for concurrent viewers. Please, please, if you're out there, you have a friend or someone you know online next door who loves to tune into content like this, maybe a fan of Mayor Rudy Giuliani, or may just be someone who checks in on this stuff on YouTube. Send this link to them right now. Get them on board. Let's see if we can get them to tune in tonight and break records. If everyone shares with just one person in the next minute, we can double our viewership and continue to break records. Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mayor, let's ask another question and then get to some more questions from our viewers. If the election were today, would you, and again, if you're supporting one, it doesn't mean you have a problem with the other. Just give us your top pick. Would you support President Trump as the next president, Ron DeSantis, or name a third person? If the election were today, would you support President Trump for re-election, Governor Ron DeSantis to become our next president, or a third person? And comment that name below. Thank you. Mayor, we're getting more questions here. What is the likelihood of this isn't a great question, but let's see your thoughts. What is the likelihood of Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia all going blue? Do you see a scenario where that happens?
Yes, I do. If Nevada goes blue, then it is more likely that the Republicans will be dispirited, won't have much to fight for in Georgia because it's irrelevant now to the leadership of the Senate. They could still win because it is, in fact, essentially a Republican state. And when you isolate it to one single race, where you don't have the complications that you had last time with Trump and Kemp and Raffensperger, Herschel might still win. Now, conversely, if the Republicans hold on to Nevada, and it is about the leadership of the Senate, I would say the Republicans are heavily favored to win Georgia. So I don't think we know the answer to that until these two states finish counting, and it's outrageous that they haven't. It's outrageous. And in the case of Nevada, it's because the way they set up their laws. I mean, they're not going to get the final votes until Saturday. In the case of Arizona, now we got a bigger problem. The case of Arizona, we've got major irregularities in Maricopa County. We have machines that broke down in Maricopa County, which meant lots of voters didn't get a chance to vote. And Maricopa County, although Democrat, is like a 5, 10, 15% Democrat county. It's not one of these places that's owned in a democratic dictatorship like Chicago, where it's 80% of the vote. So we don't know whose ox was gored by those breakdowns. We know the ox that was gored is, first of all, the sense of an efficient election. And then once again, it raises with people who go into this distrusting the election process, it raises issues of distrust. I don't know what the heck Arizona is thinking about in not having gotten their act together for this election, particularly, and when I say Arizona, unfair. The county that caused the problem last time is causing the problem again. Other counties have straightened out. Look at Georgia. Georgia's straightened out. So,
thanks for joining us. The fastest hour on the internet, America's Mayor Live with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We are breaking records. We are on the cusp of breaking an all-time record. We just need a few more viewers. Please stay tuned in. Invite one friend. Help us break that record. We are right there. We know we can get it over the top. America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, someone who is willing to speak truth to power and tell it like it is. He doesn't hold back, and he sifts through all the noise to get directly to you, the American people, with what's really happening. America's Mayor, we have a lot more questions coming in, including some questions on Michigan. Michigan is a state that went solid blue. We thought we may have had a shot at some pickups there. What happened in the state of Michigan?
I think it's pretty obvious what happened. The Democrat machine, the Democrat Party, is a much stronger political party than the Republican Party. the Republican Party is somewhat divided between rhinos and MAGA Republicans. It has a larger number of Republicans in name only than most other states. And my experience with Michigan is right at the leadership levels of the party, you've got people that have spent their life making deals with Democrats. And they don't inspire the kind of support that, the grassroots support that you see in a state, let's say like Florida or a state like Texas. There was a lot of talk about Abbott. Abbott won easily. He did away with that nitwit Beto O'Rourke like it was, playing with a child. And look what Kemp did to Stacey Abrams. But when the Republican Party was split a bit in Georgia, we lost. So I think you've got two things going on. You do have a strong Democratic machine. In the city of Detroit, crooked as hell. And maybe in the state, I can't tell you that for sure, but certainly in the city of Detroit, and the state tolerates it. And then you've got a Republican Party that doesn't have to completely have its act together. Now let me distinguish that with New York, where I know Lee Zeldin lost by 4 or 5%. I think it was 4 or 5, could have been 6. Any of those numbers are astounding for a Republican. There hasn't been a Republican who's won since 2002, when George Pataki won, after being a hero of 2000 of September 11th. And Zeldin ran a terrific race. He ran a race that was so good that I give him credit 100% for the fact that we're going to take the House back. Because in New York, you have a net pickup about 6 seats, plus 6, which is, most of that has been added into the one, we took the number down, but what was it, 210?
210.
The 210 that we have. But Long Island, which is the suburb of New York City, half of which is New York City and half of which are independent counties of the state. But the two independent counties of the state, Nassau and Suffolk, which are two of the biggest suburban counties in America, used to have 2 Democrat, 2 Republican congressmen. Now they have 4 Republican congressmen, all red. That hasn't been the case since Ronald Reagan. That's Lee Zeldin. That's the top of the ticket, brought that in. They also, may I say, were good candidates. Similarly, we won some races in the middle of the state, and we got rid of one of the top-ranking Democrats in the House, Sean Patrick Maloney, who was supposed to elect Democrats nationwide. Well, he elected a few, but he got thrown out. Now, that's a big slap in the face to the party in overwhelmingly blue New York. So New York showed some vital signs of turning. Maybe not this election, but who knows? And Michigan, the party hasn't gotten itself together yet.
Thanks for joining us. Some quick housekeeping for those of you tuning in on YouTube. We are shattering records. Keep them coming. Invite one friend. Let's break that record. We're going to have to add some more moderators. If you want to be a moderator for our live chat, please comment below. We need at least 2 of our current moderators to vouch for you. So comment below and then try to get 2 of our current moderators to vouch for you, and we'll make sure to add you. Thank you to Dez, Jet, Molly. More of you moderators that have been with us from the beginning will get a shout out. The mayor will know who you are. Keep them coming. Keep the questions coming. The fastest hour on the internet rolls on. We just have 25 minutes to go with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We are talking Senate. We are talking House. And why some of these races haven't been called. We've talked about Arizona. We've talked about Nevada. We've talked about Georgia. People have a lot of questions about Pennsylvania.
I have a lot of questions about Pennsylvania, not just you. And it's not, it was a different issue 2 years ago. But right now, the issue that I have is I'm assuming it's a legit vote. How? Of all the votes in America, you put that in any state, who votes for Fetterman? First of all, the guy is a flaming left-wing idiot before he had strokes. I mean, he was a defective candidate, a dangerous candidate. The guy empowered the district attorney in Philadelphia, who's getting people killed in Philadelphia at record numbers. Well, so did the governor, by the way, Shapiro, who's a disaster of a governor. But I mean, so what? Hochul's a disaster of a governor. Whitmer is a disaster of a governor. The guy in the next state, to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Murphy, I mean, he and Cuomo together got so many people killed in nursing homes that, it's outrageous. And Murphy was warned. They just put out the records for the states that lead the country in out-migration. In other words, people running away from the state. They're all Democrat states with dictatorial Democrat governors who are complete failures. Why people vote for them, I don't know. Brainwash. Now, how many people still tell you the Democrats are the party of the poor people? They're hardly the party of the poor people. They kicked the hell out of the poor people. They've kept them poor for 50, 60 years. Think of the communities that vote for them. Those communities haven't been fixed or anything. The only people who haven't done anything for those communities are Republicans. Trump, me.
What was your message when you went to become New York City's first Republican mayor in a long time? What was your message to communities like Harlem? What was your message?
Same as Trump's.
Never mind Trump.
The same as his. I mean, and I would say, in essence, I gave it to him, gave him this message, which is, you got nothing to lose.
What did you tell?
Nothing to lose by voting for me, because I couldn't possibly do a worse job.
What did he change in those?
And then I kept my word. I took a Harlem, I took a Bedford-Stuyvesant, I took the areas of New York that had overwhelming amounts of crime and poverty, and I turned them into places where crime went down in those places more than the rest of the city, like 80%. And I all of a sudden brought in jobs, brought in businesses, brought in national chains, unemployment. I did welfare to work. I did workfare. You wanted welfare, you had to work. I did it for your own good because I love you. I would not make a person I love dependent. They don't love you. The Democrats don't love you, poor people. They use you. They don't love you, or they wouldn't keep you poor. And they want to bring in more poor people. Illegals. In my virtually communist city, they voted to allow non-citizens to vote. Now you got to be out of your mind. You have to have no idea. You have to have no sense of what a country is. You stop being a country when you allow people from anywhere to come in and determine your leadership. What are you then? I mean, maybe more people from China will come in to vote than America. Are you America or are you China? These are the kinds of irrational, destructive things that the Democrats are doing now. And I tell you, they're not accidental. They come out of the playbook of Karl Marx. 100%. I wish people read more. I wish people thought more. I wish their education hadn't been undermined and destroyed. How many people now are well educated? I mean, you go on the street and you ask them questions, they have a hard time knowing who the president is. Well, maybe that stands to reason, since he has a hard time knowing who he is.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. And Mayor, I want you to know this, and all of our viewers, we for the first time have hit over 1,000 individuals in the live chat at one time. We are over 1,000 in any one moment. We are breaking records.
I hope they're not crowded, hurting each other.
Yeah, we have over 1,000 people there. The comments are coming in.
In one room, huh?
Reminder to Jeep Girl. Jeep Girl, you will be added as a moderator, if not tonight, by this weekend's show. Tomorrow, we'll have you on there as a moderator. Thanks for joining us. We are shattering records. The fastest hour on the internet rolls on. America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
Let me ask them a question.
America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani has a question. Mayor, go ahead. I'll read the responses.
Do you think 9 to 10 would be a better or more convenient time for you?
Facebook and Twitter. This question is for you as well.
Particularly since we're also, reaching the West Coast and whatever. So let us know what you think. I mean, we may we are thinking of moving it next week to 9 to 10.
The best way to answer this question so we can tally and really keep track, comment with just the number. What time should we start moving forward going into next week? 8 p.m. start, 9 p.m. We'll go with those two. If you want another time, you can share that, but just use the digit so we can then record that. And I'll tally those up. What time do you want us to start? Would 9 be better? Of course, we know we're going up against some real good hosts on cable television in the 8 p.m. hour, so let us know. 8 or 9. Another time you can also put out there. We are getting a lot of 9s, but we'll add these up. A lot of 9 o'clocks. I have a feeling people are potentially okay. So we'll count those up.
Okay.
All right. Back to some more analysis here, Mayor. New Hampshire, another state. That's where we are tonight. We want to remind folks we are still in the Granite State. Not a great night for Republicans.
Well, we're going to have at noon tomorrow. We're going to have a panel discussion here at the Hilton Garden Inn, which is my favorite hotel. I have to say, don't get angry at other hotels. They have a baseball field right out there. Right out there is a baseball field. A AAA, almost Major League baseball field that they keep in sparkling condition. And believe it or not, the minor league team of the Blue Jays plays there, not the Red Sox, which creates a real problem for the people of Manchester because they're Red Sox nuts. And they still like me, which is, I think, very, very big-hearted to them because...
We love Mayor Giuliani!
Yeah, but what about the Yankees? You know what they say about the Yankees at Fenway Park. Yankees, in all fairness, in the Bronx, it could be worse, right? But in any event, I love coming here. I came here the first time to this hotel where I'm broadcasting from in 2007 when I was exploring running for president. And I came into a room like this about 2 a.m. We had been all over Massachusetts talking to people, seeing if we had a chance. And I fell right asleep. I woke up the next morning and the sunlight came in. I opened the window. There's all snow on the ground, beautiful snow. And I'm looking. The snow's on a baseball field. A baseball field. Now you got to know, I'm a baseball nut. Oh, crazy. So now I come here all times of the year, whenever I come to anywhere near. I mean, I could be really coming here to be in Portsmouth or something. I'll stay here because I have the baseball field. Unless they're totally crowded, which they get sometimes. And then I get on my hands and knees and beg. And I do a radio show between 3 and 4 every day on WABC, which you can get, by the way, anywhere in the world by going to WABCradio.com. And they have it arranged so that I can just plug in. And I have a Comrex and I have my own little radio studio right here in this hotel.
Thanks for joining us again. Comment below, whatever platform you're viewing us on. What time do you want us to start? We'll implement potential changes next week, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Tomorrow's show will still be at 8 p.m. And of course, we have a special at noon, live from New Hampshire, with some very special guests. We will be back here live at noon tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm interested in getting to the answer to that question, which I must tell you I have a few theories about. But first, I should tell you that it isn't as big a surprise to the experts as it is maybe to some of us. In the last week of the campaign, Maggie Hassan was favored to win in all of the consensus polls by a much smaller margin than originally. General Bolduc had narrowed that lead from double digits down to 1 or 2%, but she always kept a stubborn 2-3% lead. So it's a surprise when compared to the expectations. It's not a surprise when compared to the polls. So I would like to emphasize that. If you kept your eye on the polls, which we've learned not to trust anymore, this is a race where the polls came out pretty correct. You're going to think not, because you're going to think that the polls predicted a gigantic Republican wave. They did not. The polls pretty much predicted what we got. Fetterman was leading in more polls in Pennsylvania than Oz. It is not a surprise if you base it on the polls that Fetterman won. So this is something that's got to be analyzed carefully, because when you look at performance, you got to look at the performance. You can't measure it against an unrealistic expectation. Otherwise, you're going to make mistakes in the changes that you make for the next election. And that's why we've got to be careful. Now, the governor won re-election by a landslide, Republican. The Republicans won both houses of the legislature in New Hampshire. So it's a bit like New York, where, yes, Zeldin lost, got it down to 6%. But New York will make a big contribution to the House of Representatives turning red.
Thanks again for joining us live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We're in our final 15 minutes. We are going to run a little bit past the 9
To make
o'clock
up
hour.
for being late, which we're going to try not to be.
We know, where this isn't this is something we want to make sure.
We're gonna be like the only president I ever met who was always on time was George Bush 43. Not even 41. Ronald Reagan was on time for the first 2 meetings, but then if he met somebody he liked, I worked for President Reagan. If he met somebody he liked, the whole schedule got blown. Because he would sit there with them. I'm exaggerating when I say hours, but he could get into baseball, and when he broadcast for the Chicago Cubs, or he could talk about modern baseball or basketball or what's going on in China. Same thing with Donald Trump. I mean, he would ask you your advice. There you are, you just came for your little visit to the White House. Come over here. What do you think about the Iranian deal? You think I'm making a right decision by axing that deal? I mean, I think it's ridiculous for us to be giving money to terrorists. And then, most people would say, well, you're right, Mr. President. But they would share with him. And that would make him a little bit late. Clinton, of course, was the worst. Clinton, it was 2 o'clock to be 4. And I spent a lot of time in the Clinton White House because I was mayor then. And I had a very, solid professional relationship with him.
Was he apologetic when he was late?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Okay.
And he never do it again. I'm so sorry I was late. I'd never do that again. I went to him once because my police commissioner was telling me he was screwing up everything in New York because we closed down every street, and he would say he was going to leave, and then 2 hours later, he was still there. And he said, would you please go to President Clinton and say to him, could you please be on time? I said, well, Bill, why don't you? He said, well, yeah, I think you should do it. Obviously, he was afraid. So I went and told him that. He said, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to do that. I know I do that. I love to talk to people. You do too. I notice you're pretty much like me that way. But I promise you, I understand exactly. As a governor, almost like being a mayor when you're governor in Arkansas. He said, I'll be very careful. I tell the commissioner not to be afraid to bring this up with me. I really respect him, and I'll be on time. Never was. Never was. So I just gave up. We just factored in, okay, he says he's going to leave. We'll have to sit out there for 2 hours. Because I didn't care if the president was Republican, Democrat, or even if it was, somebody demented. They weren't going to get hurt in New York. I'm sorry. I just tell my cops that. You put aside any feelings you have, political or otherwise. New York City is not going to let a president get hurt in our city. I hope the president get hurt anywhere. But I was responsible for getting Hinckley moved from the Metropolitan Police to federal authority and oversaw that case.
Well, remind folks who Hinckley was.
Hinckley is the guy that attempted to kill Ronald Reagan. So I have very, very strong feelings about the protection of any president. And I spent 7 years as mayor of New York protecting Clinton, and only 1 protecting Bush. And I did the same thing for Clinton that I did for Bush. And when you're protecting a president, R&D goes away. And even your personal feelings. And even if you think he's a crook like I do, Biden, got to protect him. He's the president of the United States.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. And please, to all of our viewers, new and the ones that have been with us from the beginning, visit rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com to learn more and to view all of the mayor's podcasts and so much more. And Mayor, And that website, rudygiulianics.com, what does the CS stand for?
Common sense.
So that's rudygiulianics.com.
Something in certain parts of America, I won't say which, you can tell from the map. When you look at that map, can they see the map clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So if you look at that map, this is a red country. Now, the population is distributed heavily on those two coasts. But when you look at the country, the length and breadth of it, the Republican Party is much more representative of the whole country than the now Democrat Party, which could easily be equated with the European Socialist or Communist Party. Now I say that, why? Because the rate of taxation in those states that people are running away from is socialist level redistribution of wealth taxation. Why? Please explain to me why people still vote Democrat in the states that people are running away from as fast as they can. 75% of the people in New York think it's going in the wrong direction. And they voted for the same thing they voted for the last 20 years. It's got to be in Chicago when 10 people get killed on a weekend, or 20 or 30 get shot, or 50. It's got to be the people of Chicago figure Chicago's going in the wrong direction. But then they vote for going in that direction. They vote Democratic. And they've been doing it for 50 years. 50 years, and murder on the weekend is like taken for granted. Nobody even points it out, not even pointing out the fact that they're slaughtering black young men. Slaughtering them. Look, these are wartime numbers. I don't know why. Why do I get real upset about it? And the Democrat politicians don't, who can do something about it. Why do I get all upset about it, but the black Democratic politicians don't? Why? I mean, we've done a few podcasts with some very, very distinguished African-American blacks who can give you the reason why, but one of the reasons is the brainwashed Democrat vote. It doesn't vote based on achievement, accountability. Most blacks, roughly 70%, would like to break up the public school system and have choice in education, have vouchers, have scholarships. Every black politician is owned by the teachers union and opposes it. Every black politician, almost every black politician, opposes what the vast majority of the black community wants. And obviously they've been totally ineffective because the communities they represent, as Elijah Cummings said before he died about his own community, nobody's done anything for this community in 23 years, kind of forgetting that he was the congressman. And the guy who didn't do anything for his district was him. God rest his soul.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. Please visit rudygiulianics.com and listen to his podcast, brand new, multiple times a week, and just some really good content. So check out rudygiulianics.com. Like, share, subscribe to our channel. As we always say, try and invite one friend, one colleague, someone from work, your neighbors to the show for tomorrow night. And of course, tune in at noon tomorrow for a special live from New Hampshire. We're going to be speaking with top GOP officials from the state, potentially some candidates, what happened here in 2022, and of course, looking ahead to 2024 and the first in the nation primary. We will, of course, New Hampshire plays a oversized role being the first in the nation primary. You'll want to tune in tomorrow at noon. And then again, of course, 8 p.m. for our usual live show. We're running low on time, just a few minutes left.
Well, let me take you through the latest forecast from the consensus polls. So there are 32. If you look up on the board here, you'll see on the right, remaining 32. And that puts Republicans at, you see there, 210, Democrats at 193. Remaining 32. There are 7 that they believe are safe Democrat. There are 2 likely and 4 likely Republican, 6 leaning Democrat, 4 leaning Republican, and 2 tilting Democrat and 2 tilting. So if you add that up, the 4, and the 2, that's 10, that gets you to 220, which is 2 more than a majority. If those happen as they are predicted to happen, which means the Democrats go 2-1 on 20 of the remaining 32 seats, 2-1. The Republicans only get, half of what the Democrats get. Republicans will have a 2-vote majority. If they get half of those toss-ups, half would be 2.5, but let's say 2 of those toss-ups, they then get to 222. And 222, by the way, is the number the Democrats have right now. So they flip the House, which is a big, big thing because it's more than flipping the House, it's halting the president. And this is a group of 222 or 225, not like the Paul Ryan Republicans, who are truly, he was truly in name only.
And Mayor, a lot of folks, not a lot, somebody did comment below that they'll be working tomorrow at noon. We know most of our viewers are hardworking, red-blooded Americans. Remember, all of our videos are posted immediately to Rudy Giuliani's YouTube page. The mayor posts all of his content, so if you're not able to be there during the day tomorrow, tune in when you can. Check out all of our previous content on the mayor's YouTube page. Thank you for joining us on Facebook.
You can also
and Twitter.
Go to rudygiulianics.com, rudygiulianics.com, and you can get my most recent podcast, which is a discussion of this election. And tomorrow I would check in on the noon conference, even if you get it later, because we'll have people there who should have even a better answer than I do as to what happened in New Hampshire and what can be done so that we change this for 24.
You're going to get insight that you won't get anywhere else. Right here in New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary, maybe the most critical state in the union when it comes to our U.S. presidential primary process. Just a couple minutes left, Mayor. One question before we go into your closing thoughts, if we may.
Sure.
Can you look these folks in the eye, in the camera lens, and give them something? A lot of Republicans in the last couple of days, card-carrying conservatives, Republicans, they're thinking, wow, what happened? Wasn't as big of a red wave as we thought. Can you offer them any sort of assurance or maybe guidance? And you've done this for decades.
Yes,
share a message.
This is a realistic victory. We were hoping for something historic and unusual. Now, nothing objective predicted that. So we have to say that it was a combination of feeling the enthusiasm of our people, really the frustration of the worst presidency in modern history, and also a Democrat Party in House and Senate that is a aider and abetter of this express train to socialism. And it was high expectations. If we had stayed with the polls, then we would have achieved the victory that was there. We have achieved a victory. Now, it does depend somewhat on whether we take the House. And I would say that is, I believe that call is being held back on purpose so that you Republicans feel dispirited, Democrats feel happy, and Biden can look like he's finally done something, At the same time, he looked like a wreck today. Screwed up about 5. I won't even go into the sentences he got wrong and the facts that he got wrong and the states that he got wrong. He's a disaster. The only person worse is Fetterman. And he supported Fetterman, which the biggest disappointment of this campaign is not that we didn't reach the expectations that we were hoping for, because I always kept my thoughts of that, kind of, we'll see. However, how could you have elected Fetterman? I'll never understand how the people of Pennsylvania elected a man who can't function, and also a man that is in jeopardy of getting another stroke because of the stress that he's being put under. I mean, this guy had a serious stroke. You can't lie about that. We see it. People who have serious strokes are not supposed to be in stressful situations. They just put them in the most stressful situation of all, and that's the slime pool of Washington.
Again, thanks for joining us for another exciting edition of America's Mayor Live with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We have two special programs tomorrow. Well, one special and, of course, our regular 8 p.m.
A regular
show.
special program.
So noon tomorrow, live from New Hampshire with some of the top people here in the Granite State discussing what happened in 22, but looking ahead to 24. After tomorrow's noon special event, you will be the most informed person in your friend group going ahead to 24. You will have insight nobody else will have. So tune in tomorrow at noon, and then again, of course, tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. for episode 15.
And go to
of America's Mayor Live.
rudygiulianics.com, and at your leisure, take a look at the podcast, which reviews some of what we were able to discuss, but goes into a little more detail so that you can understand it better.
Before we head out, Mayor, the state of Nevada, willing to make any final predictions on how that's going to go?
Republican.
Adam Laxalt will hold on to that.
I am confident that he will hold on. Looking at what's left, it seems unlikely that he can be overtaken. By the same token, I believe the same thing is true of Kelly in Arizona. But what that does is it makes Georgia the state that decides it.
All right, Mayor, send us off. Send everyone out with a nice goodbye message.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that this was a positive step forward in our effort to stop the express change of socialism, communism, the destruction of our form of government and our way of life. This was a positive step. Now, it is true, we got to hold our breath a little because they're forcing us to do it about the House. We win the House, then, for all intents and purposes, we won this election. If we can win the Senate too, it's fabulous. But if we win the House, we've blocked him. If we win the Senate, we not only blocked him, we can present him with legislation that shows just how terribly he's hurt this country. This man has been the worst president we have ever had, and he's getting worse. The illness that he has is progressive, and if you watch him, you can see it. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you. Again, join us at noon tomorrow, same place, noon tomorrow, and then again at 8 p.m.